quality is quite good.
Okay, that's really, really awesome. All right, so I suppose we should start our class. At least it's already the time. All right, so as you know, my name is Maxim Zhiganos, and as you probably were informed, I'm actually um, from Latvia. So, anyways, this course um, may happen mostly in English, and if there will be some problems may because actually Eugene already informed that probably some of you will just switch sometimes to might be a Russian, then it would not be a problem for me to give some comments even that way. But once again, all this really depends on you guys. All right, so as far as I know, you have to be overly kind of nine in the group, but okay. Well, who connected? Well, those are connected. All right. So as you know, our course is about the Python. So literally, a programming language which is used quite frequently. And probably the first thing what I would like maybe to say is kind of a few words about myself. So you already know my name, so Maxim Zhiganos. Basically, I'm all positioning myself as professional developer. Um, so actually, I'm doing things in programming actually since the middle school on the professional level, selling my own apps starting from the school time, and and during all the time I was always being developer, entrepreneur, working even in my small firm, and in parallel I always have been teaching people well how to make software correctly, how to make apps nicely so clients would like them and just correctly. Well, and I was asked to run this course for you guys related to a Python. The only thing I was informed that besides the fact that the name of the course is object-oriented programming with the Python, we will have to start from the very beginning. So looks like there is at least assume that you don't really have a knowledge in the Python. I mean overly. But what's the exact situation? Maybe guys, you can write in the chat what programming language or languages you have been dealing with. Write in the chat which programming languages you used, because experience could be quite different for you guys.
So during first year we used C++.
Okay, okay. Maybe there were some courses. I see that you guys are writing in the chat. At least there is no any single message still appeared, but I see that you are kind of typing. Yeah, okay. So you had a C++, but maybe you had even some courses related to some other programming languages. Maybe C Sharp, Java, Delphi, Pascal, maybe F Sharp, maybe I have no idea, maybe JavaScript and other stuff like that, or maybe even Python. Like you already have in the chat that it was at least some sort of the look on the Python side. Okay, looks great. Looks great. Okay, I assume that I will place you even few links in the Moodle about the Python. So those will be manuals. So literally, I will provide you some literature about this. Because we are gonna overlook basic operations, some sort of data compression things, steganography things, things related to a visual side, so programming some window buttons, some visual control elements, and so on and so on. And probably you already have seen a document called description. Um, it might happen. I will need to maybe open that and share my screen so we could take a 100% look on that. Okay, so I'm about to activate the screen sharing. Okay, well, I suppose you can see that. All right, so we have a description document right here. So literally, there is the overlook of the course, and what do we have here? Well, we have part of things we have to go through, but once again, it will be a bit broader. We have kind of subsections, and we have your final mark, and how you will get that. So literally, you will have assignments you will need to make. So literally, you can make an assumption that we could call them as homeworks probably. As well as there will be some assumed results from you guys during classes. But once again, this is quite expectable thing, I would say. And in the end, on our last meeting, you will have to present the project. So you will have to literally present a presentation about your project. You will be working on using Python during our course. Maybe about the definition of the project, I will give you that maybe before the next time. So I'm gonna to publish this somewhere here on the Moodle. So I think that makes sense. And for sure, just keep in mind that all assignments, in other words, all submittable things, which goes for the mark, literally will be taken into account, calculating your final mark. But once again, this is quite a regular thing. So I think on another classes you have same or similar approach for the final mark. Okay, well maybe I can switch back to oh, and we got the plus in the chat. Okay. All right, so maybe we can switch back to a presentation mode. All right, and maybe we can start trying to deal with the Python. The story about the Python is really easy. The Python is a scripting language that appeared quite few decades ago. Literally, what was the purpose of the Python? Just the simplification of instructions, and literally, scripting language means that that those instructions which are written won't be compiled. Literally, what it means you have the opened codes in your files. The same as with maybe PHP, if you know, or a JavaScript. Put a plus if you've been dealing with PHP or JavaScript, because they are quite popular. Okay, no pluses in the chat. Well, okay, let it be so. All right. Literally, what we'll be doing? We will be dealing with, I would say, a few syntaxes of the Python. Some of examples will be provided in the Python version 2, but actually a conversion to the Python version 3, which is super popular nowadays, but it doesn't mean it's used everywhere, will be quite easy. So what we have to start with? May I ask you guys to write which operating system are you dealing with? Maybe you have Windows, Mac OS, Linux. Okay, thanks guys. Right, so what we are gonna start with? Maybe I will open my Parallel Studio. Give me a second. Okay, so I have one, and I'm about to share my screen so we could start working. And it might happen that I will be just working using the screen sharing, sometimes switching between the presentation because I have it on my browser and the system where I have the Python. Okay, well, in my case, I will have a presentation within this tab, and sometimes from time to time, I will be taking a look on the chat. But once again, you don't be really shy to ask questions, activating the mic, the microphone. Okay, so the first of all, what we have to deal with? Well, we have to get the Python. I already uploaded for you the Python installer, but just in case you don't really have that, just visit the python.org page and hit for the downloading. So here you will get the latest version, and that would be great. Oh, what was that sound? Maybe screen sharing was cancelled.
No, I raised a hand. I want to ask a question. Is it a
Yeah,
difference
go
between
ahead.
using like a page like onlinegdb.com? There is also Python, but 3.0 version.
Oh, well, I would say there is no big difference between the same major versions. Okay, well, what's the major version? Well, it's before the first point. So we call that as the major version. If you have the same major version, then it's fine. You can use that. But you mentioned online compiler or online tool, right? Was it like that?
Yes, correct. It's online compiler on the website.
Okay. The only problematic here is that we will be dealing with additional libraries we will be installing. And well, who knows if those libraries are inside, or maybe let's call it pre-installed on that online compiler. We don't know that. So if only you will be struggling with these things, well, you will have to install that. But before that, it's not a problem. You can use it. Okay. So I suppose that maybe it will take a minute to install. So once you will get the Python, please put a plus in the chat so I could just see who already have it. Okay, half of the group already has it. Okay, so let's wait for maybe a minute. Okay, and while you're trying to do that, I will maybe take a look. What do we have here? Okay, so we can write the full code and then run that. But okay, once again, the question about libraries. Okay, let me switch to the chat. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Overall, you are 8. Yeah, so 2 more pluses would be needed. Okay, maybe Vidas already has the online one, so So we're waiting for another plus.
Also have installed the version from the original page, python.org.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's great. And we're waiting for. Let me take a look. Gediminas has. The second Gediminas.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Do I need to? I have a question. Do I need to install the Python if I have Visual Studio Code?
Oh, well. If you already have the Python compiler, then I would say you are fine. So if you have the Python extension, that's great. But as far as I know, the Visual Studio Code is just an editor where you write the codes, and you can, in addition, attach compilers. So if you have a compiler, that's awesome. If you don't have, well, you will have to get that. Okay, so if most of us already have the Python, so let's maybe switch to the Windows. Because you guys are using Windows, so let's say we will have the same case. And what I'm about to do. How can we work with the Python from the very beginning? How we can launch that? Well, probably the simplest way is to use a command window for dealing with that. It's quite a similar way dealing with, for example, MySQL database, if you have been dealing with that. So what we are going for? We are going for a CMD, so the command prompt. Okay, so we can have that. And we can go for the Python. So if you do that, so you see we are being pulled to a command window of the Python. How we understand that? Well, by these 3 signs greater. Well, if we say that's the comparison sign. Okay, and here literally we can write some codes. For example, the printing of some text. Let's say like that. Press and enter, and you see we receive some reaction. Or maybe we can say, well, we will have the variable a, and we can get the variables a value. So you see, we give an instruction, and we receive back some response from the Python. So literally, that's the way how it works. So I would say it's one way how we can work with that, but this way is not super popular. In most of the cases, what we do, well, we literally write a huge massive code, and then we just give a launch of that code for the Python. So how it works? How to deal with that? Because here you can see we will just write some comments. We'll hit enter, giving the command to the Python, and then we repeat the process once again. So how to do that? How to give the whole file? So in this case, I just created some specific folder on my computer because I have a bunch of folders. In your case, it's up to you where you will place the file with the code. But what you have to do, you have to have the file with py extension. So this extension goes from a Python. And you can work on this file, for example, using a Notepad++. Okay, so what we have here. Here you can literally write a couple of commands. Well, for example, it could be print ABC. It could be, I have no idea, maybe a is equal to 7 plus 2. Then let's say we would be printing some variable a, for example. Let's just suppose. So we can save that. And then afterwards, what we'll be doing? Well, let me close this one. So we will take this folder's path. We will go to a command window like this, and as you know, we have to go to the folder in the command prompt. I assume you already know some basic commands of the command prompt like a cd and others. So we're going to that folder and we're gonna run that file called print.py. So we have to give this file as parameter to the application called Python. So for that purpose, we write Python to run the Python's app, to run the Python's console literally, and we're given the file with the relative path. Literally, you can use even the absolute path. There's no difference. But since we are located in this folder, well, this relative path of the file would be great. Okay, and as you can see, we just hit an enter and we have a result of execution of that file. And once again, in the file, we had a couple of instructions, and they were executed. Okay, so that's the story about how we will run the scripts. The next we'll go for writing the scripts and understanding the syntaxes. Okay, so please try to run your first scripts, for example, using the print command. Print and brackets, and in the brackets the textual information using quotes. And when it's done, please put a plus in the chat so I would understand that you managed to do that. Okay, so let's wait for others. Okay, so I see that everyone managed to do that. Really awesome. Okay, well, let's maybe take a look a bit on the theory, and then we'll try to implement the theory in the Python. Okay, so literally here we have an example of the script, and from here we already can understand what we are dealing with literally. So the first of all that we can have for sure the comments, which can be written a comment by the line, and you know actually we can even write several comments in the line, splitting them using a semicolon. But here we don't really need to use a semicolon in the end of each comment. So we can say that semicolon problem. Well, you know, programmers quite frequently forget sometimes about the semicolon, and we can say such problem doesn't really exist here. Well, you can comment each line by using the symbol, and after that you can write a commentary. Well, it's the same like we would have two slashes, like in C++. About variables, we don't really initiate variables, so we just assign values to them, and literally by that we create a variable. So for example, if we didn't assign the value to the x, we don't have the x. Literally it means that way. So we can have integers, we can have texts, and for text we use quotes, and for symbol, for just one symbol, we use the ampersand. Oh no, well, how was that? It's kind of single quote, sometimes it's called. We can have even float values, and here we don't really specify the range of the value, like it's equal to kind of floating point value or double floating point value. We can have some, for example, statement like if statements. They have a bit of tricky construction, I would say. Here we don't really need to use brackets, so literally you can use several comparison operators without the brackets. You can have so-called logical connectors written in just ordinary language like or, and, not, XOR. By the way, have you been dealing with those logical operators like or, and, XOR, not? So just yes or no?
Yeah, but in C++.
Okay. The main thing is that you understand how it works. That's the main thing. Okay. Literally, here we can see such very interesting thing as such constructions. So, literally in the Python, when we are about to create a code block, well, what is the code block? Well, sometimes when we are dealing with C++, what we do, we write if, then some condition, and then we create the code block. Okay, let's call it some imaginary if. So that's the way how we deal with the C++. Well, in the Python, we will still have if, we will have the condition, and we will have a so-called this double point for specifying the beginning of the code block. So this one would be the same as you would have this curly bracket on the line where you have the condition. So literally it works in a similar manner. And the only way how we specify if instruction is inside the code block, we will have a space between the left border of the code till the instruction which we are gonna execute. Well, for example, if we would have 3 prints in the C++, how would we write that in the Python? Well, we would have the same space between the border of the text editor, let's say, and the command itself. So, and if we will have the same distance here, then it would mean that, well, we have all these 3 commands in code block which was started here. I know it looks a bit tricky, guys, but it is what it is. That's that syntaxes. Okay, let's maybe try to deal with this. Let's maybe try to use that somehow. Maybe we can even copy that code we have here. Okay, let's maybe copy that, and let's oops. Yeah, so I have to, yeah, so in the macros I have to use different combination. Okay, so I have it, and sometimes when you copy information from the PDF, you have this codes problem. Not always, but in most of the cases. Okay, so let's make the space here. Yes, so it was exactly in that way. Let's hit Control S for saving the file, and let's try to run it. The only thing that printing here is written using the syntax is number 2, so-called major version number 2, and the difference between version 2 and version 3 printouts is only related to brackets. That's the most difference. Okay, so we have it. We modified those codes, we added those brackets, and we can right now run the code. So we are going to a command window. We are hitting arrow up to select the previously accepted command, and we are hitting enter. And what do we have? Well, we have two printouts. And let's see how that worked out. Well, we had an X, we had a Y equal to hello text, we had some Z value, and we had a condition if Z is equal to this value or the Y is equal to a text hello. Then Literally, this means then. Then we added 1 to an x, and we added a text space world to a y value. Okay, so we literally concatenated texts, and we printed out both values. And that's the way how it happened. So as you can see, really easily this could be implemented. But the question is still about these spaces here. So maybe I will activate invisible symbols in Notepad++. Yeah, and I will maybe go for the following things. So I will try to maybe use different spaces, like I will have 2 spaces and I will have 4 spaces. So what will Python say us? Literally, we have to receive some alerts. So let's go for that. And you see that actually it's not really clear to which block this code corresponds to, where it should be located. Because here we have 1 space and here we have another space. If they would be the same like this one, it would work. So let's go back to the command window and let's hit for the command for the run of the file, and you see that works well. Probably another question would be, well, how it happens that sometimes we use a so-called tabulation sign. You know, like when we type, when we hit tab button, and tab button mostly is located well, at least on my keyboards, on the left side of the key Q. Well, in my case, the editor replaces that a priori to 4 spaces. But if I wouldn't make a configuration related to this, I would have a bit other symbol. Okay, maybe I can take a symbol from another file. Give me a second, because I wouldn't really like to maybe switch before. Oh no, everything has been replaced here. Maybe I can go for preferences. I don't really remember where I had this tab configuration. Okay, anyways, if you use a Notepad++ and you have kind of arrow here pressing the tab, so that's exactly the thing what I'm talking about. Okay, about spaces, I suppose that's clear. And moreover, guys, even if we would have an if-else case, how would we write that? Well, we would say, well, we will have the else, and we will start the code block of the else case, of the so-called false branch. And once again, we could do something here. Well, for example, adding a text that would have something else. I have no idea, maybe 1, 2, 3, like this one. And here, this code will work. So let's see if it will be working. Yeah, so you see it works. Everything's great. So here we have one space, and here we have another space. So literally, it doesn't really matter here what kind of spaces we have in different code blocks. The main thing is that in the one code block we have to have the same space. That's the principle. Okay, let's maybe go for another things. Okay, so what we can use? Well, literally we can use the same mathematical operations as we use in another programming languages, like assigning, like comparison, like plus, minus, multiplication, division, the reminder of the division. We can use logical operators, well, the basic command print, which is quite simple stuff. Okay, here we have kind of examples about what data types we can use, but we don't really mention the data type itself. We always have to remember about dealing with integers and floats. For example, why do we have 5 divided by 2 equal to 2, not 2.5? Because we are dealing with integers. So here, the principle is very simple. If one of operands is integer instead of float, then the result is integer. So that's the story, which is quite simple. Okay, about the text, we can compare texts. And for specific texts, we'll use triple quote for starting and for the ending. But about those triple quotes, we'll have a talk a bit later. Okay, about brackets, we already had a talk, so let's just scroll the slide. We can even create functions. For the functions, what we can do? Well, we can use a def that goes from a definition and then space, and we can write the function's name. And in the brackets, we can literally mention all arguments the function will have. And once again, we have the beginning of the code block. So literally, the story is the same, like for the previous the overlooked if. And then we can give the commentary of the function using a triple quote. Actually, this description is even saved into specific function subvariable, which I will show you afterwards. And then we can just write some codes. Right now, it doesn't matter what those codes means, but we can use a return to give back a value, or we can ignore that if you like. Similarly, as in C++, use functions. In some functions, you use a return, in some you don't use. That's really up to you guys. Okay, in some specific cases, we can work with classes, well, objects, or in other words, instances of the classes, and we can work with references to the objects. So literally, Python works in a similar manner with data, like C++ does. And another similarity would be related to names of variables. So we have to be dealing with names correctly. And here for the names, we can use English alphabet. We can use numbers. We can use underline. The only restriction is that number doesn't go first. Well, the rule is the same for all other programming languages. Actually, it's not a huge problem if compiler would allow that, but it takes a lot of additional time for interpreter to interpret the code if number goes the first one. So it has to analyze a code fully, and then it will just get that your variable starts with the number. So to make this process much easier, so developers from the very beginning and forward and going, don't use the number before the name. Okay, and we can have reserved words which cannot be used for variables, for your customized comments or custom comments, or a function names, and so on and so on. Okay, so literally. Okay, maybe we can just scroll this one because it's not very interesting. Well, we can have very interesting constructions sometimes. So, for example, we can have, let's say, a signing of several values to several variables. So, literally, this case, and more specifically, such example, x, y, and y, x, literally says us how Python makes the calculation. So first of all, the first step of the Python will be to gain all these values and placing them into short-term memory. then calculating stuff if we have equations here, and then giving back values from a short-term memory to variables. Okay, well, and here we have the similar cases we have in C++, so we can make chain assign of the values. So we assign this value, then from the X value is given to B, and then from B value is given to A. So in the similar manner as in C++. Well, quite easy. All right. So here we have a small example about how it happens that we can use a variable only when its value is defined. So similarly, we can have in our codes, for example, here we could say, well, we're about to print not only XY, but we are about to print even, I have no idea, maybe ABC variable, right? Like this. Okay, and if we would run this code, we would find out, well, we got a problem. So the issue is related to the ABC name. It didn't appear in the code, so it doesn't exist. So, but once we assign some value, for example, this one, then everything goes well. So you see, things are working on. I would say quite easy. Okay, well, the other thing is always related to how we store data. And storing the data in a Python is super easy. For example, we can use constructional structures like sequences. Why I'm not saying the array? Because for using the ordinary array, we have commands for creation of the array, modification of the array elements, but in the Python it goes in a bit different way. So we can have a so-called tuples, and the tuple is the array, which actually is the constant. We can have texts, and we can we can utilize text symbols like array elements, and we have the ordinary arrays. And in case of the tuple and in case of the list, we can have different types of the elements. Like here we have some John, we have 32, and we have something in the list placed there. And here we have, for example, some values, text, and we have a tuple of values. So we can work with lists, with sequences, very elastic, I would say. Okay, well, I suppose mostly things are clear related to this maybe lists, but let's try to understand how we can work with them. So how can we make them? So let's say the tuple can be created using such approach. So for the tuples in the Python, we use ordinary brackets. So let's call it rounded brackets. And for the list, we will use a square brackets. Okay, so as you can understand, that's the only difference for a definition. And the text can be created using 3 approaches, which we already overlooked. The only difference that here this text, even besides it uses just a single quote, it will be represented as the text, not the character, but the text, because we have multiple symbols here. Okay, and how can we work on our sequence elements? Well, we're using square brackets to have an access to values. Okay, let's try to maybe create some sequence. So let's have our code, and let's maybe erase everything we have, and let's create some sequences. Okay, so I will go for a tuple. I'm not really sure if, well, actually the tuple should be reserved for Word there, because it's kind of a data type. So I will go for maybe a T, which will mean a tuple. and I will give some maybe values like this. Next, I will say, well, I will have a list. I will go for a variable L and I'll create a list. Okay, and I will go for a text, and I can have, for example, ABC. Okay, well, I suppose this one is clear, and let's maybe make a printouts of some values we have in these lists. Well, we will be dealing with the first element of a tuple. Next, we will have the second element from the list, and from the text we will have the third element like this. So what we are gonna see? So we're gonna see 1, 5, C. Okay, let's save it and let's try to run it. And if really things are made nicely, then everything should work. Okay, what do we have here? Oh, the problematic is actually related to an indexing. Yeah. So we have to start the indexing from the 0. So here we will have a 0, here we will have 1, and here we will have 2. Well, as you know, different programming languages have different approaches in indexes. Okay, let's go back to a terminal and let's run it again. And what we have? Well, we have the same things which we are expecting to receive. So actually, super easy. Okay, guys, so try this on your computers and maybe put a plus in the chat. That would mean that you made that. Just to be sure that you are following and you managed to do that. Okay, so half of the group already made that. Okay, awesome. Okay, and we're waiting for two of you. Yes, if you have a question, go ahead. Oh, yeah. So looks like this question goes from a comparison of these things in other programming languages. Okay. Well, I would say it depends on extension which you use in the Python. Well, I would say it would give us a value of true. But once again, depends on extension of the Python you use. Unfortunately, it's so. Well, we can take a look what we have in our Python version, because once again, it only depends on extension. Okay, we can have it, and let's see what it will give us. Okay, so it gives us false. Okay, so the standard extension actually doesn't have value recalculation. In the similar case, I suppose that concatenating of them will give us an error, because once again, if it's a strict extension, then it should be strict for every such operation. So let's go for running this code. Yeah, so we got an error. So extension is placed into the strict mode, or it's just a strict extension. Okay, I don't really get what you meant by TY.
Thank you, maybe.
Okay, great. Yeah, So as you can see, well, okay, you don't really see that. We don't really have different Python versions, but it depends on them. Okay, so we have some 10 minutes more, if I'm correct. So let's overlook another things. So that's clear about the index, and that's clear about having sequences. But is there any option how we can deal with sequence maybe more elastic? And there's such way. We can use a negative indexes, which is a bit, tricky thing, but anyways. And here, it's assumed that we have indexation starts from 0. And indexation goes, well, how goes? It's just being indexed, kind of on the right side. In the same time, we can go like, maybe the Pac-Man game when we go to another side, but literally we appearing on another side of the play field. Maybe you have seen such game. Okay, put a letter P in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. And here, literally, we can use a negative index just to start going through the array, or just arrays element from another side. So literally, you can imagine as you would have the same list on the left side, and you are just decreasing the index, starting from your 0 index element. So that's the story about this. So -3, well, how do we receive the value of -3 index? Well, this is -1, this is -2, and this is -3. So kind of, a bit maybe tricky, but actually that's the elastic approach. So you can say, well, which element is the last in the array? So you don't really have to have the size to have it. Okay, so we have two people who know the Pac-Man. Well, that's awesome. All right. So what else is interesting here? We can work in the similar manner as you probably know such application called MATLAB, the application for the working with matrices. Well, here we can work on the regions of values. So literally how it works. It works in such manner that we specify the beginning index and the last index. But the last index, so the first index will be including that index, and the last index will be excluding that index. So before the second index, values will be used. So this one will be the first by the index. This is the second. This is the third, and this is the fourth. And since this 4 is the last one, it will be excluded from the result. So, and we have such result. Similarly, we can work with negative indexes, but once again, we specify a region of values where we have the beginning index and ending index. And this ending index should not be a value that stands in this list, in this sequence, let's say, before the beginning index. So it shouldn't be such one. So if you would write 1, so from 1 till -5, and since we have a strict extension of the Python, I suppose it will give you an error. And once again, you have never an information about which Python your client computers will have. So so I would say from my experience actually, that you always have to think, well, which runtimes will be located on the client computers, and you have to always thinking like, well, it might happen that those will be so-called strict extension runtimes. It's just a recommendation, actually. Okay, well, sometimes we can actually not dealing with one of those indexes, the first or the second. Well, it means if we don't have the first, we are working with the from the beginning of the array. If we don't have the last, then it means we are working till the end of the array. Like here, from the index 2 till the end. And end doesn't mean the last element, it means the end. So the last element will be included into this result. So that's the way how it will work. In a similar manner, we can just forgetting about having let's say indexes at all. We can just say, well, we're going for the whole region of elements. And here we have the first tricky thing. So maybe you remember working with arrays in C++. What is the array exactly in C++? Especially when it's text, it's maybe more easy for understanding. It's just a portion of memory or a sequence of memory cells, and you have the access to that sequence of memory cells by the address of the first one. And you know how many such cells you have. I mean, memory cells. Literally, if you make a signing of the array, you literally make an assigning of the address of the first element of the sequence, which means that actually right now, if we have the first sequence and the second sequence, we are assigning the first sequence, first element memory address to the second sequence literally address actually. So you will have both variables that dealing with the same memory. So you made a copy of the reference, that's it. But how to give a copy of the array to another variable? Well, you have to give a list of elements, or let's better say sequence of elements. So you extracting elements from the first array, and you're giving those elements to another array. And those elements will be given not by their reference, not by their address in the memory, but by the values which are being written in those memory cells. So here we have these two different, well, maybe from the first eye catch the same operations, but actually they're quite different. Does it make sense, guys? Is it clear? Okay, great. What's about others? Because I suppose that on the C++ you have been dealing with the same things. Okay, so 3 people answered something. So please, guys, be more active in the chat. I know it's the evening, but still. Okay, so let's maybe try to do the following. So let's maybe try to print out L. Okay, well, unfortunately, we will not receive the result I would like, but anyways. So what we have when you print out the L? Well, actually, we print out the chain of values. And how did we receive those 3 values? Well, because here we have a sequence structure that has a starting position in the memory placed into variable L. That's the way how we received all these 3 values. It doesn't matter how this print is defined. The meaning of how we receive those 3 values is that we have the starting address and we have overall 3 elements. Okay, how it happens? Let's say we'll have L2, right? So let's suppose we will change, or we will assign L1. Okay, what will happen here? So we have a copy by the reference. So let's try to change something in the area of L2. So we'll have L2. Let's suppose the middle element will be equal to, I have no idea, maybe 1, 2, 3. And here we are printing out the value of L1. Okay, so let's see what will happen in this case. Which values we will receive? So what we received? So 4, 1, 2, 3, 6. In the same time, you can see L2 was modified, not L1, kind of, yes. But previously we say that address which L2 is referred will be taken from the address of L1. So right now, both of these variables working with this array. But if we here, we would write the following. So we are taking all elements from L1 and we assign them to L2. Then we have two totally separated arrays. So let's save it and let's run it again. And you will see that actually the L1 was not modified by this code. So by this code. So guys, the same question again. So does it make sense right now about this assigning by the reference and by all values of the array? Okay, that's really, really awesome. Well, I see by the time that we actually have to finish the class. Okay, maybe in the end, I will say a couple of things. So surely next time we'll continue working, but what you will have here. So sometimes you probably will have some questions, and it's totally fine if you will write some questions. Well, there are a few options for you how to deal with things. So option one, you can use the email, but in case you're using email, always specify from institution you are, and don't expect that it's possible for me to answer fastly, or let's say to make a reply for emails fastly. It's not so. It's really not so. It takes for me days. But here, since we have a separated system, you can actually write me a message through the Moodle. And once again, when I will have a time, I will just maybe logged in, just taking a look if there are some messages, and most likely at that moment, if I will see a message, then I will answer you. Or maybe I will write that, well, I'm not ready to answer, I will do that a bit later. Well, something like this. So I really recommend you to use entire Moodle system for this. Okay, well, and next time we will be continue overlooking our presentation because we didn't finish it yet. Okay, so if any questions from your side before we will finish? Okay, let's count to 10. Okay, looks like no questions. All right, so if there are no questions, then guys, thanks for being here, thanks for being connected, and sure, next time we will continue working on things. Okay, so if anything, you